So first and foremost, thank you for what you're doing. It's a tough thing being a mother, being a family member, and it's equally as tough to be a service member that's been deployed to Iraq. My question to you is military spending. Where do you stand right there? I know you're talking about the different levels of diplomacy, military action, but supporting our troops and really getting the money to our troops. We saw a news report last night about Navy SEALs sharing weapons. And my son too dealt with some of those challenges. So where are we in terms of being able to support and really fund the kids that are on the ground?
Well, it's a myriad of what happens in the military, depending on the service and what. The first thing you have to understand is that we are in a transformation, and we must be. We need to grapple with what does the future conflict look like, and what do we need to do to handle that. And because we've been under sequestration, now I think maybe we're in the 5th or 6th or 7th year, you lose track sometimes, we were bringing down the level of spending both on domestic programs and on the defense programs. And we have also brought down the number of billets, or the number of positions in the military. So, I don't know, does the future look like a race across with tanks in Poland? Because the Prime Minister of Russia just said 2 weeks ago at the International Security Conference in Munich, it looks like we're in the Cold War again. And because Putin is on the Ukraine line doing his little green man and amassing equipment there, I know because I was asked by the Ukrainian government, and I went on my own dime so I could figure out what was really going out there. To go for one day, I jumped in, the one day I could find, to fly halfway around the world to talk to the generals there about what the heck was happening on the eastern flank. So what does the war of the future look like? Is it all technical? Is it just these drones and dropping things? Is it airstrike only? Is it against Iran? Because maybe this nuclear deal really, falls apart. And then you have to look at that terrain and you'll know just how difficult it is to fight. So one of the things that we do, those of us who sit on the military committees and we sit with our generals, is to try to look at what do we need. And we are in transformation. I will tell you one thing that happened with Iraq and Afghanistan after 11 and 13 years of war there. We wore out our families. We wore out our soldiers. We wore out of our equipment, right? So we're having to redress all of that. And it hasn't been easy because the wounds that they came back with are much deeper than a lot of people realize. And then we get the sequestration. So one of the things that happened, and we have seen, is what I call a hollowing out of our force. So you have people in these slots, but you're not equipping or training them because you don't have the money, right? It's a hollow force. So we've been trying to address that. This year's budget actually has an increase to both domestic and to military. But you will see some of this transition going on. I will tell you, this past year, just in the section that I control in military budget, we cut $700+ million of bad programs, of things we didn't need, of things that people just, hang on to do. I've had to tell some of my own manufacturers, the Navy doesn't want that. Let's figure out what else they need, right? You just don't do it. You just don't make things to make things, right? But we were able to apply that $700 million back into some of the equipment and some of the training that our military men and military women needed. So I think you're going to see a plus up on the military, but it's you have to remember, when you're full out at war, which we had been in 2 separate fronts, the first thing Congress does is they throw money at it, right? They don't want to be accused that your son was out in Iraq without bullets in his gun, right? But now we've got to pull back and we've got to say, what do we really need and what does that look like? And that's one of the roles that I get to play. It's incredibly exciting, incredibly, mind-boggling. But remember, I'm a numbers person, I really can put things into perspective and then go and explain it to my colleagues. They rely a lot on what I get to see. So we're addressing some of the concerns you're talking about. And certainly, as a mom, I'm thrilled my son, I'll be there, he's thrilled. I'm still scared. I'll just tell you, I am. What else? Yes.
I was heartened to hear that education is one of your top priorities, and you mentioned your interest in making college more affordable, but I think we also all know that disparities in opportunity and the achievement gap start much earlier than college. And so my question is, what type of investments or reforms would you like to see educationally earlier on, even in early education, meaning preschool and before that?
I'm a Head Start kid, right? Go and look at that Head Start video. I mean, it not only educated me and put me on the right path, but it helped my mom know how to address the system here, the educational system, and had her become an integral part of that. Right? She was Ways and Means for the PTA, she was this, she was that. I mean, she was an aide in the classroom, she went and got her GED. So Head Start is not just about the child. I mean, my mom had 7. I was the only Head Start kid in the family, but she got enough learning and training to understand how to move her other kids through the system. So, and my mom always said, the first teacher of a child is the parent. So if you look at my work in the Congress with respect to education, you'll see parenting classes. You will see Head Start. I think all children. Why is it that if kindergarten is the beginning of school and it's a race, right? I mean, once you start, it's like you get an A, you get a B, so it's actually a race, whether we like to see it or not. It's a competition. Why is it that we would have somebody start behind that line? Because they didn't get preschool because they couldn't afford it. So big funding for Head Start. The shame of Head Start is, even though I've been able to increase it, like in the year 2000, we put an extra $1 billion in, and we've been able to keep that level plus inflation and other, is that 1 out of 3 kids who qualify actually are funded. So I think this whole issue of preschool is incredibly important. Parenting classes. K through 12 is really addressed at your local level. That's why you have local school districts, and it's addressed through the state funding issues, right? They really don't want the Congress reaching back and involved. That was a fight that took many years before I ever got to the Congress. But we do impact it where we can, in the lunch program, in giving grants, not telling the school what to do, and giving grants for technology, E-rate, psychologists, nurses, and in after-school programs. So before, at lunch, what happens in the classroom, think about that. It's a very difficult and touchy thing with respect to having Washington, D.C. put that to people at a local level. But also the college, I carry the doubling of the Pell Grant bill. I carry the bill that